We're live. I will one day not start a show like that with ridiculous. I click go live. I should know that. I'm about to. Hi. Good start. Hi, welcome to the Charlotte Show. I am Charlotte. I'm joined by Norman.
Hello.
And Micky. This evening, we are going to warm you up for the big Leicester game at the King Power Stadium this evening. It kicks off in about an hour, meaning the team sheet is probably about out. So without further ado, I will take a little look at, here we go. It is 48 seconds ago. Look at that. All right, guys. You guys haven't seen it. Here it is. Martin Dubravka, Jacob Murphy, Emil Kraft.
Oh.
Federico Fernandez, Paul Dummett, Matt Ritchie, John Joe Shelby, Joe Willock starts, Miguel Almiron it's not a straight swap, Alan Saint-Maximin and Callum Wilson. So that's a reasonably strong midfield to forward situation. Norman, your instinctual reactions to that?
The Kraft one's the best one. Obviously, he's coming for Clark, right? I don't envisage Jamie Vardy panicking too much about seeing. I don't think he would have panicked too much at seeing our team in anyway, but he's probably panicking even less now, given his goal scoring record lately. He's probably looking and thinking, oh, and you know the fact that he does look like Albert Steptoe, right? He looks like Steptoe, doesn't he? And you can just see him like rubbing his hands, can't you know? Like the old character from Steptoe and Son, and he's probably thinking, I've got two in the bag. Then he's. And also, Willock coming in for Longstaff, right? We always knew Willock was going to start. And I guess some of us were thinking maybe he'll bring him in for Shelvey, because obviously Shelvey's input into games, as far back as I can remember, has been relatively minimal. But He hasn't dropped Shelvey because Shelvey is his number one. And obviously team captain. So happy days for you, John Joe there, mate. Look, going forward, if we get the ball to Maximin, if we get the ball to Wilson, if we get the ball to Almiron, then we can cause them damage. We know that, right? I mean, they're excellent defensively. There's no two ways about it. But we've got players who can damage the best of defenses at times when they're given an opportunity to do so. But obviously, given that there's nothing really riding on this game for us, all right, we're not mathematically safe from relegation, but really Fulham winning 4 consecutive games, probably not going to happen. I think tonight is going to be a very tough watch.
Well, A2 is saying, Shelvey too, can we just forfeit the game for fuck's sake? We have. We already did that. Micky, what's your reaction to the team sheet? I'm sure it's not much different.
Yeah, not too dissimilar to Norman, obviously. I mean, these positions pick themselves, and yet Steve Bruce manages to get it wrong time after time after time. It's incredible. Longstaff and Shelvey were as bad as each other at the weekend, but if one of them has to come out of the team, it's just so obvious that it should be Shelvey. You know, in a midfield battle like we're going to have against Leicester tonight, we need legs. We need legs in the middle of the park, and John Shelvey basically, quite literally, doesn't have legs.
He literally doesn't have legs.
But he doesn't use them, does he? Like he uses one sometimes to kick the ball quite hard, but the other one he might as well not have his left leg.
So it just pogoing
around. In terms of balance, it's useful. In terms of balance,
could be a stick though, couldn't it?
Maybe it's just a decorative leg, and he's never had both legs, and it's decorative.
That explains a lot.
He should have a chrome leg if he's going to have anything. It should be a chrome.
I'd give anything for a chrome leg, just a chrome appendage, just any kind of chrome appendage. Be great. One day when the technology's there, when it's not, those 3D printers, they use plastic, but the day they use chrome is the day that I'm investing.
Right. Well, that day will come.
If anyone wants to come in on the investment with us, I'll leave me bank details at the end.
Jamie Adams says, what's the bench like? A great question, Jamie. We've got, it's smaller on the little picture, so I have to lift up my phone. Gillespie, Clark, Carroll, Joel Linton, Gale, Lewis, Hendrick, Manquillo, and Sean Longstaff.
So that that bench actually means that Clark has been dropped for Kraft. It's not that he's not fit. Kraft's been picked out of him.
The thing about that is as well that you're right, because he said in his press conference yesterday that there hadn't been any new injuries and there haven't been any anything of note that's happened in the last week or so. So he literally looked at Emil Kraft in training this week and thought, yes, he is the one to play on Friday night. And you know what? That segues us nicely. Oh no, Paul G's Googled Chrome appendage. Quits internet immediately.
Yeah, that was the wrong Google input. You know what I mean? You got to get the words. You got to be careful how you add those words, and that was definitely the wrong way to do it.
You do. Tim Wood says he's doing the match report tonight for True Faith, so it was going to stay sober. Kraft playing, Shelby still playing, popped a can open. You know what? I understand. Don't condone turning to alcohol necessarily. Drink responsibly, but I totally get it. A2 saying Shelby does one token sprint to try and show that he runs around and then strolls for the other 89 minutes. Utter fraud. I'd rather play Saive. Well, we've discussed this. He only has one working leg, so that's why.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to briefly give a shout out to Henri Saive. I was there during the 3-2 victory away at West Ham 2017-18 season, 2 days before Christmas, when Saive made an error on the first couple of minutes West Ham scored, but then he proceeded to run the game like Patrick Vieira in his prime. But like that was it. It was like he had this one intensely magical, fleeting moment in his footballing career, and I was there to witness it, and it'll still be one of my greatest ever footballing memories. He scored a free kick from, I'm sure it was at least 60 yards. It was 30, but like every year it's added 10 yards on, so it's up to 60 now. Yeah.
It's going to be from like outside the stadium soon.
Yeah, exactly, from like the other side of the Thames. Yeah.
I sometimes wonder how he managed to persuade the rest of the lads that he should take that free kick in that game. Like, I know he's playing well, but like he hadn't been anywhere near the squad for years. And then there was like some decent free kick takers playing on the day, and Saive must have just been like, "I'm having this one." The rest of them, I reckon, the rest of them were just so shocked that he thought it was on. They were just like, "All right, they scored."
Oh yeah, I think so. Just gonna say, David Reed says, Swedish international, what's your problem? Kind of looks like you're calling me a Swedish international. Like, hey, Swedish international, what's your problem? Yeah, Mickey, they're shite, and he's shite. So I think that's the main issue. Anything else to add there, Norman?
No.
Okay, great. I did want to talk about Steve Bruce this week. Mickey even texted me today to make sure that I would get this into the discussion, which of course it is always going to be in the discussion. Out of 3 other managers, Steve Bruce is up for is it manager of the season? Manager of the month? Manager of the month.
That would be frankly outrageous.
No, I bet you that is coming. Sam Allardyce, Marcelo Bielsa, Steve Bruce, and Solskjaer. Like those are your options. Steve Bruce is up for manager of the month. Norman, were you surprised to see him on the list?
Well, not really, because how manager of the month works, right? It works on a points basis, doesn't it? More or less, how many points you get over the course of a month, even regardless of defeats, right? If you play like 6 games in a month and you get 12 points, you might lose 2 games, but if those 12 points kind of put you in the top 2 or 3 in terms of points achieved, then you'll be up for the award, right? That seems to be how it works. So I'm not surprised. In what it clearly shows you is actually, it doesn't work on performances, does it? Because obviously those Newcastle games where we picked up points, there was patches of decent play, but ultimately we didn't perform scintillatingly. It wasn't like we were absolutely fantastic in those games. You know, Burnley, the win away to Burnley, a good win away to Burnley, right? But it relies on Maximin coming off the bench and producing 10 minutes of magic. The performance prior to that was pretty miserable. West Ham, you know, they're down to 10 men. It was a tough game. They came back from 2 down. Liverpool game away could have been 4 or 5-0 down, and we couldn't have any complaints really. So ultimately, performances weren't great, but the points were there. So that seems to be how the system works. I think obviously the Arsenal game, if that's being factored in. Did the Arsenal game happen in May? Was it May by the time the Arsenal game kicked off? It was, wasn't it? So it's for April only. So there you go. There's the logic. But also, Manager of the Year, you've got to bring in to account Brendan Rodgers' comments today. I don't know if we're going to talk about them at any point, Charlotte, but God almighty.
Oh, I think we should, Norman. Yeah, Brendan Rodgers has been talking about Steve Bruce, and Brendan Rodgers is in another realm, in through the looking glass, talking about Steve Bruce. Norman, do you want to regale us with what he said?
Love to. So Rodgers, again, like many managers have been asked about Bruce, they're asked their opinion, you know. And obviously with Newcastle, they love asking other clubs, managers and fans and, you know, ex-players about Newcastle, because the narrative around Newcastle is that we're the poison chalice hardest club to manage, you know, we demand too much, etc. So Brendan Rodgers was asked about what he thinks of Bruce, and apparently he's had an outstanding career as a manager, not just as a player, as a manager, and he's done an outstanding job at Newcastle. I don't know what table Brendan's been looking at, but obviously we're fourth bottom. I don't know if that is, in many people's eyes, an outstanding job. You'd think if Sheffield United sort of in January went on a run and ended up finishing fourth bottom, you could say, oh, that's an outstanding job. You know, they were bottom of the table, relegated basically in January. But Bruce, to me, hasn't done an outstanding job. In fact, if there's a word that is the opposite of outstanding, I'd use that. I don't know what it is, though. I haven't got the intellectual capacity to come up with that word.
In-sitting.
Yeah, in-sit. He's done such an in-sitting job. Yeah, it's almost like, part of me almost thinks, like, is Rodgers trolling Newcastle fans? Like Klopp said something similar as well about Bruce, and you're thinking, oh, they're just trolling me now. And then the other thought on it was, well, Rodgers, given the fact that he obviously bleaches his teeth every day and he works out because he's got those kind of big middle-aged man biceps. I just thought, as he just gone to the gym and done his teeth and come in, he's just full of the endorphins, just full of it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Steve's an outstanding job. He's just got the post gym, post bleach on his teeth high. Maybe that. I
think these, like you say, it's just like the Manager of the Month thing is just looking at results. It's not looking at games. Norman, I'm just going to mute you because I've got a re thingy. I hate this, like, it's pundits who don't watch our games, it's Manager of the Month that is just based on results, it's all of that stuff, and I really hate it. Mickey, what did you think of Brendan Rodgers' comments today? Also, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of teeth whitening, Norman. There's nothing wrong with it.
Daily teeth whitening for a middle-aged man, though, is a sign of a crisis, and a Premier League football manager should not be going through a midlife crisis because he's got it all. A good Premier League team as well. It's just pleasantry is taken way too far, isn't it? Like, he doesn't have to say the word outstanding. He hasn't done an outstanding job. Norman, if Sheffield United had come back from the dead and finished fourth bottom, you might say that it had an outstanding second half of the season, but the whole season wouldn't have been an outstanding job. So to say that Steve Bruce has done an outstanding job, bearing in mind that we went like 26 games or something without getting a fucking point or whatever it was, I forget now, it was that dismal. To say he's done an outstanding job, it's just a lie. It's just a barefaced lie. And he's obviously just not wanted to upset Bruce and taking it too far. I reckon the Leicester PR guys at the end would have rinsed him when he came back into the main room. They would have been like, "Why have you said that? Outstanding? Are you joking?" Of course he hasn't. The manager of the month thing, there's an argument there that he's done a decent job over the last 31 days, 30 days, whatever it is. 2 wins and 2 draws in the fixtures we had is positive, and it's a massive turnaround from where we were. Manager of the season, though, I've become a little bit obsessed with this theory that we're living in a simulation. I'll not go too much into it, but it's fascinating. If you ever stuck for something to do on a night time, have a read about it. But that would be the final straw for me that would assure me that we are living in a simulation, because if Steve Bruce gets manager of the season this year, it's the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened, and it just all can't be real. I'm not having it.
Well, A2 says that he thinks it's an unwritten rule that you don't shit on your fellow managers. I mean, I guess that could be it, rather than the living in a simulation. Maybe.
Could be both. Could be both.
We're living in a simulation where that's been like the code, that you can't shit on your fellow managers. Yeah, it does seem like managers are always like, great guy, wonderful manager, doing a fantastic job at this thing. It's just, we joke about Brucey Bingo, but it is just like that, spinning a wheel. Like, you've got to do the press conference. You can't slag them off. and you just have to pick out a few words to say and just say them.
But outstanding though is like the most positive word, isn't it? Can you think of a more positive word?
No, Norman, can you?
And more outstanding word, more outstanding positive word than outstanding. No, because if you said outrageous, that could be construed in two different ways, couldn't it? I like the fact that I like the idea of just like a manager one day saying like, Pep, what do you think of the job Steve's doing at Newcastle? Pep just saying in that kind of deadpan style, well, the fourth bottom of the table. There's my opinion, and just leaving it at that, just leaving it open. I just wanted to answer the quick one I saw a second ago from Gil saying, "Can you get high from teeth whitening?" I wasn't saying it like that. I'm talking about the fact that his teeth are nice and white. He's just been pumped, so he's got the endorphin rush because he feels like he looks nice. I'm not saying you get high on teeth bleacher. I don't believe that's the case. Although I'm sure that if you broke it down and ground it into some other substances, you probably could. But no, I'm talking about the high that he gets. I'm talking about the high that he gets from looking good.
That would be just like so much effort, really, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah, no, exactly. Just going and buy a bag from someone.
Is this? Are we now accusing Brendan Rodgers of like sniffing teeth whitening powder?
No. I feel like I don't need to write an article to explain myself, and I'll do it during the match.
This is one of the theories. This is like the simulation theory. There's a lot of people saying, so we live in the Matrix, all of this stuff. Joseph Gardner saying, Norman likes to party. I think Norman's been known to party in the past. Yeah, somebody said that Steve Bruce is as good an outstanding manager in the same way that he's an outstanding landlord. And that is, of course, the news last week that a woman who lives in a flat in Birmingham had to go into hospital because there was mold and stuff in the flat, and that wasn't sorted out, and she had a pretty horrible eczema and skin reaction to it. And turns out that the landlord or the owner of the house is Steve Bruce. So there was a union, housing sort of standards union, protesting at St. James's Park last weekend about that. Whilst, like, I would be very surprised if Steve Bruce has any idea that he even owns houses in Birmingham, but I still don't think that's okay. I think it's pretty horrific. But a pretty good segue into, somebody asked, where is it? There's lots of people chatting now. Which political party would Bruce be part of? Obviously, it's been the local elections in England today. Which political party would Bruce be part of? Monster Raving Loony Party or Tory? Well, after that, landlord, I'm going to go with Tory. Norman?
I'd probably agree with you. It's difficult, really, to pinpoint where Bruce would go. I don't know if he thinks about politics too much. And I get the impression he's probably one of those voters who voted for a party when they were 18 because their mum and dad did, and he just keeps voting for them, and he just knows zero about their policies at all. Alternatively, he voted for like Count Binface just for laughs.
He'll have looked at it and been like, "That is hilarious."
Yeah. Look at that, lols. You get loads of custard in that bin. I'll vote for him. Free custard bins. Custard bins. It's a new policy. Free custard bins for everyone. So happy days.
Oh no. Okay, I have to stop laughing. You made me cry again. Okay. Roger's opinion, Paul Jason, sorry everybody, Roger's opinion doesn't really hold any weight given he's not concerned with what's happening at NUFC. That's another theory, isn't it? That these other managers just aren't really that asked about what's happening at any of the other clubs apart from their own, and they're just like, yeah, fucking brilliant, absolutely brilliant job. It's much more concerning when pundits and commentators come out with crap like that. I totally agree. They're the ones who are supposed to kind of study these things and analyze and get paid a lot of money. I'll just quickly.
Oh, sorry, Sean. I thought you'd stop.
No, I was just going to say nothing, but with loads of words. Go ahead.
I'm going to do the same right now. I get that. That's a good point. But what I would say is that Rodgers, like, today's manager's tomorrow's pundit, right? The fact is that if he, for whatever reason, gets sacked from Leicester, it's unlikely he will, but if he goes to another club, he gets sacked, he's then a pundit, right? And the way I look at it is that these people involved in the game don't tend to criticise each other because it's a kind of very, what would you call it? It's almost like an incestuous industry, isn't it? They all kind of look after each other ultimately, right? So if Rodgers, I don't know, slates Steve Bruce, and then all of a sudden he's working in TV, and then he's being pulled up on this, and it's just kind of this almost this kind of confrontational negativity that would be present, and I think it's something that they don't want. There is an element of them being in that industry and kind of looking after each other. Rodgers, I don't think, thought about it too deeply. Don't get me wrong, not as deep as I'm thinking about it now, but at the same time, I think that is part of the problem, is that they weren't necessarily criticizing. You don't, criticizing, being nasty. There's no point in that, right? But being kind of factual, I think, is a good thing. And for someone to ask Rodgers how Bruce is doing, they shouldn't ask him that anyways, right? They just shouldn't ask him that. It's kind of putting him on the spot. But to say outstanding, it's like somebody should have just said to him, "What do you mean by that, Brendan? In what way is that job outstanding?" But no one did, and it just kind of makes me think like this relationship between the journalists asking the questions and the managers and the pundits. It's all just a little bit cozy, isn't it?
Well, Alan Shearer said a good while ago in his first stint in punditry, kind of immediately after he managed Newcastle, that he was incredibly reserved in his comments on managers because he thought he might end up back in the industry and back as a football manager in the future. And then he says this himself, when he realized the football managing wasn't for him and he was going to remain in the media, that's when he felt like he could be far more critical of other managers. So it's clear, he said what everyone thinks, like managers look after each other, and it's obvious. And it would look really bad if you got a manager that has no, like, there's no rivalry there, there's no beef there. Like Brendan Rodgers couldn't give two fucks about Newcastle and Steve Bruce, obviously, because we're no threat to them ever. If he came out of that question and was like, he's doing a terrible job, the fourth bottom, they've spent however much money, what's he doing there? Everyone would be like, whoa, Brendan, like, stop sniffing that stuff, man. It's not good for you.
I'm just desperate for one of them to do it. Speaking of straight talking managers, or possibly not even that, I don't really know how to describe it, but we were linked with, is it Gattuso? Is that how you say it? This week. Doesn't really look like, and I don't think that'll happen personally. I don't think there's any legs in those rumours, much like there aren't any legs on John Joe Shelby. But I think it would be really fun to have a manager like that. Mickey, would you have taken it? Oh, no, go ahead.
No, please, sorry. I got excited there. I had an opinion.
Your finger went up first. I was just trying to be nice to Michael. You go ahead. Yeah,
the finger. I think Gattuso would...
Why did he say it like that, Norman?
Why did you do that?
I knew where to get you, Gannon. So Gattuso for me is he reminds me a bit of Paulo Di Canio. Like there's something like quite fun about him. Like look, he's very passionate, right? But his jobs in management haven't necessarily gone brilliantly, right? He's had some decent jobs. He had AC Milan, and I think that kind of shouty enthusiasm madman can get something for a while, especially when you first arrive somewhere and you gene people up. But after a while, you need more substance, right? And it's as ridiculous as it sounds. I would put Pardew in that bracket in the sense of, in a different way. It's all about kind of how they kind of big you up and talk to you, right? But once you get past that, once you spend an extended amount of time at a club at a high level, there needs to be more substance and more depth. You need actually the tactical side of the game. People stop listening to your kind of salesman patter, right? And people would stop listening to Gattuso's just full-on Raj patter. And Paulo Di Canio had exactly the same thing. He was at Swindon, did a good job. I shouted players in League Two, got into League One, went to Sunderland, they avoided relegation. His record at Sunderland during that time they avoided relegation was poor. They beat like Everton and battered us, I think, and stayed up. But then after that, they were getting hammered. The start of next season, they were getting hammered. And I think Gattuso might be of that kind of ilk, that sort of Raji who the fans love for a bit, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, hold on, there's not much more there, is there?
For me, he has a real Maradona-esque, like, I really think that he likes tooth whitening powder probably as well. Maybe. I just get that vibe from him. He's V for Vendetta says Gattuso would chin Charnley for not signing a player. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Mickey, would you have him over Steve Bruce, or do you think it would be more of a novelty thing? Or?
I'd have anyone over Steve Bruce. I've always had a soft spot for him, though. He was such a good footballer. Like the style of footballer that I just loved to watch play. Just like an absolute lunatic in the middle of the park, fouling people and kicking people and being aggressive and strong at like one of the great midfielders for me. So I would definitely have him, but that's only because Bruce is terrible. But there is an element of like it sort of fits to just have a lunatic in charge of Newcastle because everything about the club is so mental. Then we might as well just just roll with it and get an insane manager who could just do anything. I was thinking when it came out, it almost feels like sacrilege to say this, but the only thing that I didn't like about Rafa was that he didn't celebrate goals, and I know that was part, like, he was always thinking about the bigger picture, and that's what made him so brilliant. That like in the immediate aftermath of a goal, he was already thinking about the next thing that needed to happen. But there's something class about seeing a manager going mental on the sidelines, and I think we would get that with Gattuso. Like if we scored, he would be going berserk. Like Bruce doesn't really do it, which is weird considering he thinks he's a Newcastle fan. I like seeing managers go mental when they score, and I think we'd get that with him.
Yeah, I believe that Rafa did celebrate, but it's like everything he does is really considered and small, so it'd be like a twitch of the shoulder. But that's like me screaming and like my arms going everywhere. Norman, you look like you want to say something.
Oh, let's just jump in quickly. Sorry.
No, I didn't see the finger. Okay, there it is.
I don't know what I need to do, but there you go. There it is. With Rafa though, like it did build into something. So when he did celebrate, when he did allow himself to come across the away end after a massive win, or when he came on the pitch at St James at the end of the season, the championship season, it was like all of that celebration was in one, and I was so buzzing for him that he'd let himself like go for like 5 minutes of celebration after so much incredible hard work that I like the fact that he didn't celebrate goals didn't matter, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I don't think that you were saying that and being like, so I wouldn't have him back. Like, that's the tiniest little criticism of a world-class manager. Norman, I know you want to jump in. Oh, but I've muted you, so let me unmute you first. Oh, you chose to mute yourself, so it's telling me I can't unmute you.
If
you mouth it, Norman, I'll say it, and I'll try and not with my lips.
It's not me muting myself; it's the finger muting me. So basically, I'm not with Mickey on that. Like, I understand you want to see the manager going absolutely rad, right? But I love like an absolutely like just controlled tactical genius type manager who is just almost like there's almost like a Terminator element to it, right? Now, what Charlotte said about Rafa celebrating with a little twitch of the shoulder, right? The glasses in the pocket, classic Rafa, right? I mean, and one of the things that endeared him to it. And also, you just knew with Rafa that he was happy, right? And you knew that like that connection was there. And also, I reckon in his head at the time, basically like in his head, as he had this like kind of facade of being cool and collected and thinking about the next match, it was also like a full-on 1980 style party where you've got like Prince there, Eddie Murphy, all of that just happening in his head, banging off in his head. But he just keeps it in because that's how he is. It's like, look, this is me public face. Inside, everything's going on, but I'm keeping it to myself, and that's it. And I loved that about him. And I also love a manager who wears a suit. Like if I was a manager, tailored suits all the way, every time.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, I would, but it would be like for a lady with like really flared and in bright colours. That's my. Yeah, for a lady's suit. I'm not going to wear a waistcoat. Let me put it that way. Thoughts on Rafa still talking to some players, according to Sky? Didn't know that. Also, if you're like, obviously you're watching us, but if you're watching the pre-match stuff and any comments come out that you think we should be aware of, we're not watching that. So type them in the comments and let us know. I know that Bruce often comes out and preempts a loss by saying everyone's very tired. So, Very keen to hear that. Thoughts on Rafa still talking to some players, according to Sky. Do you think Sean Longstaff asked him what a false 10 was after the Sheffield United game? Maybe. So this is, I assume Rafa is still in touch with some of the players that he coached, which would make sense, I guess, if they had a good relationship, if they have each other's numbers. I mean, that I think if you were a young player, in particular, any player really, you would want to stay in touch with a manager like Rafa for guidance or tips, or just to wish him feliz cumpleaños when the time comes. What do you think they talk about, Mickey? What do you think Sean Longstaff and Rafa text about?
What should really be happening on the pitch instead of what actually is happening. I think it says a lot that the players are still in touch with him. I think it says a lot about Rafa's mentality towards Newcastle. Like, he would come back. He would come back. I know he would come back. Everyone knows he would come back if things just weren't absolutely dismal in terms of the running of the club. And that just, although I knew it would be the case because he's clearly a nice bloke and he cares about football players and he cares about football players' development. And he said that many times. And there was a lot of young players in his squad that have clearly benefited from it. And so I knew he would be in touch with them, but to find out that he definitely is just makes you think again, like, he wants to come back and we could have him back and we're not going to, and it just breaks my heart.
Oh, Norman.
I also think that, like, he genuinely cares about the development of those players, right? Like Longstaff, for example, was given his first team debut by Rafa. He was brought through by him, micromanaged by him, which, players who aren't born, like, as footballing geniuses, right? And look, I mean, like, statistically, Longstaff is a footballing genius, right? Because the fact that he's made it as a Premier League footballer, it's, the odds of it are so minimal, right? You've got to be outrageously talented. But within that talent pool, to be the kind of player who doesn't need from an early age the right kind of coaching and guidance, and when you come through and make your debut, the right kind of management when you're out there on the pitch and on the training ground, like, there's very, very few players like that. And Longstaff obviously probably falls in that category as good as he is for making it the Premier League. But Rafa obviously wanted him to do well. He looked after him. He took care of him. And he made him play the best football that he's ever played. He's never played football as good as that, has he? I mean, obviously you could argue that he's had problems with injuries, right? But I don't get the impression that Bruce necessarily has the same sort of care about these players that Rafa did. And it's just an opinion, right? It's based on no facts. It's just my impression of watching Newcastle and watching football for a long time and seeing how Benitez manages players. You get the impression that he genuinely forms a bond with them and cares. And that's my opinion on that.
Yeah,
totally agree. Sorry,
yeah.
I completely agree. You're definitely right. Definitely.
I agree as well, just so that everyone knows, I also agree. I think it's lush. I think I think it's a real testament to not just the, like, Rafa kind of lifting us up in terms of our performances, but also, like, the links and the bonds that he's made with it just goes to show how much our players were playing for him as well, I think. Anyway, Parissa Stamford says, from a Chelsea blonde to a Geordie blonde, that's me. It's natural. It grows out of my head like this. What do you and your fans want in the future? Well, I can't speak for all of our fans, but personally, I'd like to see the club sold to someone or a consortium who allow fan representation on a proper and meaningful level. We could talk a little bit about the Glazers letter today to Man U fans, which I haven't properly looked at, so maybe we won't talk about it. I'd like some ambition. I'd like, I do want us to win stuff personally, but more than that, I want to see, like, drive and ambition and progress and excitement. And I want my dad to go to the football with me because he really wants to, not because I'm like, go on, like, we'll go, like, and seeing him grimace when we're walking up to the ground. Like, I want all of that again. And I think it's not too much to ask or too much to want for. Mickey, what do you want?
I just want us not to be shit, or I mean, it's not even that. It's I want us to just want to not be shit. That's all it takes is just a little bit of effort to try and be better than we are, and that should be a consistent thing throughout any sport at any level. I feel like Newcastle United are virtually, I've said this for a few years as well, the only team in professional sport in the whole world that actively try not to get better.
Yeah.
Many teams fail at it. Most teams fail at it, but we actually don't try to get better. That's such a terrible thing. I was thinking on that actually this morning because I've signed up for the ballot to try and get a ticket for the game. And thinking about whether or not I really wanted to go. It turns out I do, because I'm now really excited about the opportunity to go to the match. But you just think like, by that point we'll almost certainly be safe. And if we're not safe by then, we're probably going to get relegated.
Right.
And what comes next? What comes next year? It's going to be the same manager. It's going to be the same setup for the club. It's going to be the same owner. We're going to spend absolutely nothing in the summer, despite being the only team, I think, in the Premier League that's made any money. Although our accounts are based on last year rather than this year. And it just makes you think, like, what is the point? So that is quite, I promise you, that is the only thing I want for Newcastle United at the minute. It's just to want to be better.
Yeah, I think understanding, Norman, I'll let you come in as well, but I think understanding what the club wants for itself would be good. It would be really good. Master of vocabulary, me. And like, yeah, just like some kind of vision and some kind of like something to get behind would just be lovely. Norman, what do you want? What do you want?
Oh, the finger hasn't muted me. That's nice. So I'll tell you what, honestly, right? The billionaire owners, like, don't care about someone coming in and spending billions, right? That doesn't not appeal. I just don't care about it, right? What I want is, and it's stupid as it sounds, like, I want to like match the ambition of someone like Brighton. And what I mean by that, right, is I want to see investment in the academy, right? I want to see outreach work in the local community, like loads of money being put into the academy to bring through players from the local region. I want to see a club that sees, you know what, fourth bottom isn't good enough. We want to aim higher. I want to see like fair pricing for fans. I want to see fans representation on not necessarily even on the board, but just within the club, like a democratic decision-making process. I want to see this kind of relationship where the club becomes once again the focal point of the community, and it becomes like a real influential part of the community where people feel like they can I don't know, like they can go there and feel like they're part of something, you know, like just that. Like that would be enough for me, that kind of ambition. And it, as I say, like I'm not expecting to win titles or challenge for the Champions League. Although, to be fair, 20 years ago we were challenging for the Champions League. It's not that long ago, right? But what I mean is, like, a club that can, you know what? Look what we've got, right? This is what we've got. We can push for top 10 every season. That's what we should be doing. So that's what I'd like to say. I don't think it's a crazy ambition to want your club to have a good academy, to do outreach work in the local community and try and finish as high up in the league as it possibly can. Like that's it.
No, I totally agree with you. So there you go, Parissa, I think was that your name? Have I got that right? That's what we want. Yes, Parissa. That's what we want. That's what we want, us three. I'm sure that there are fans, you know, watching who don't disagree. If you think we've missed anything, write in the comments. Someone called Walker's called you a commie. Well,
true.
Yeah. That's right. Chris Hanna says Leicester should be the prototype of how you build a club sensibly. Do you agree?
Oh, I'll quickly jump in. In many respects, scouting network's fantastic. They've got really good relationships with the community. Some of the young players they've brought through are absolutely fantastic. The one that springs to mind immediately, obviously, is Harvey Barnes, who is a wonderful talent. It's a real shame he got injured. I don't think Leicester would actually be kind of still needing the points to finish in the top four if he'd stayed fit. But they are owned by a very rich owner. I mean, the Thai owner is incredibly rich and he has invested a lot. But at the same time, what they've done is they've invested it sensibly. He hasn't just come in and, you know, just laid out a load of cash and kind of and not done anything more than that. They've clearly invested, as I say, within the area of Leicester, right? Again, that connect between the fans and the club. Those fans love that owner, right? That's a rarity when fans actually genuinely have affection for the owner. Obviously, he's passed now, but I'm talking about his legacy. It's a great model. It's a really good model. I think Leicester and Brighton are actually two models. And I know Brighton's struggling in the league, but you've got to look where they've come from, right? I mean, like 10 years ago or whatever it was, 15 years ago, they won the bottom division. So they for me, they're templates of what I'd like to see us be. Don't get me wrong, in terms of historical support, we are bigger than those clubs. There's no two ways about it. So we could have higher ambitions, but get the base right and the rest will come naturally for a club the size of Newcastle.
I think the point's absolutely right. You look at Leicester over the last 5 years, they've taken the opportunity when they're at the top of the game, after they've won the Premier League, and when people are talking about them, when players are interested in going, they've taken the opportunity to recruit well, but at the same time they've invested in the club really well. So they've just built a magnificent new training ground. When you compare their investment in club infrastructure with ours over the last 10 years, it's a farce. It's a total farce, the comparison. And our earnings, our revenue is significantly higher than theirs. Now, obviously, Norman, you've said they've got the owner that's invested XYZ money into the club. Our club has that money on its own already, but we still haven't invested it. So I kind of agree with the point that they are extremely well run and they are a prototype, so to speak. But we don't even quite need that, because our club is profitable on its own. So we don't even need the owner to do it. Like we could literally do it ourselves if we weren't just being ran on this shoestring budget. So the prototype, yes, but like we could be even better. I was thinking about this after the preview. I texted the two lads that I did it with and said, like, whenever I look at Leicester, I always think, like, here's what you could have won, because that could be us and that should be us. We are in the perfect position to be the Leicester in this league, to be the team that's just outside the quotation marks Big Six, that pushes in and sometimes every other season does well against a couple of good players that don't get injured and finish in the top six and push someone else out. That could and should be Newcastle United. But it just won't be, which is utterly infuriating.
Aye, got great points. And Toon Stimp has just put in an excellent point, which kind of ties into what I was just about to say. He's right. The scouting network is phenomenal, and this is the thing, right? As much as Ashley has been a skinflint, right, the club has still spent. If you look at it like from purely financial terms, if you actually look at the millions spent, it's a lot, right? But this is the problem. It's the arrogance. It's the arrogance of people at the club, such as I'll say it, Lee Charnley or whoever it is who runs things. They're arrogant and thinking they know best, right? Like imagine all that money that was spent a couple of summers ago. You give it to somebody who knows what they're doing. I.e., you give it to Rafa Benitez, for example, right? That investment is totally different. So it's like right now the ambition I would take. Right now, what I would take is just them actually turning and saying, you know what, we haven't got a clue. We haven't got a clue how to spend this money, right? So we're going to bring in experts. Toonstay mentioned Leicester, as I say, they had Steve Walsh in, someone who knows who knows how to scout players, right? Just bring in a manager who will basically say, right, then how much money am I getting? Okay, great. I'm spending it like I do what I want with this money. You have nothing to do with transfers. You have nothing to do with how I want to develop the academy. You tell me how much money I've got and I'll spend the money. But we don't even do that. Like we've got non-football and people running a massive football club, and that's hugely infuriating and also just such a massive waste of money and resources.
I don't think that Leicester is an unrealistic model, though. You've got those three signings there. Newcastle, like, established the blueprint of like researching and buying players from the lower French league. We did it. They just didn't come off quite as well. But I promise you, the scouts that have brought in Mahrez and Kante to Leicester didn't think that they were going to be two of the top 7 or 8 players in the Premier League within a couple of years' time. So it is a sustainable and realistic model that Newcastle could operate on. That point there is just saying that Leicester got particularly lucky with 2 of those players. Vardy is a separate thing altogether because, it's Jamie Vardy, came from absolutely nowhere to be brilliant.
Same scout though, mate. Same scout. It was Steve Walsh.
Yeah. I mean, he's clearly a genius, isn't he? But if you asked him honestly over a pint and it wasn't recorded or anything like that, he didn't know that Kante and Mahrez would be 2 of the top 7 or 8 players in the Premier League because he couldn't have. It's impossible.
Sorry, I'll just quickly add there. Christopher Hannah's comment and what Mickey was saying. You bang on. Graham Carr absolutely knew what he was doing, but what I'm saying is he wasn't allowed to sign the players, was he? He knew what he was doing. He gave a list of players, and then we ended up getting the 4th or 5th down. Sometimes we got, the players that I mentioned there. This is what I'm saying. So allow the actual people who know what they're doing to do it and don't even kind of interfere. You know, like if Graham Carr's telling you can get Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang for 13.5 million, sign him. You know what I mean? Don't go and pay 6 million for Emmanuel Riviere, who's like 7th on your list. Listen to the first choice.
Yeah, we got Wijnaldum as well. In addition to those players, we've got Wijnaldum, who's like won the Champions League and the league title with Liverpool.
Yeah, I was going to say sort of it's. Hang on, I'm going to mute you again, Norman. Sorry. That foundation is there. It's not like some fluke weird thing that Vardy etc. were found. It's really good scouts, and that's where you need to put the money and things like that, which you've all said. So I won't go on with it too much. George Proud says he's enjoying the show so much he forgot to lock the chickens in. Love from France. George, I hope they haven't escaped. Go and get them. You can come back to the show.
2 vegans on the show here, George, mate. You need to go and sort the chickens out. Come on.
Yeah, look after your chickens, as the old saying goes. Right, we'll do a couple more minutes and then give everybody a few. I know Mickey wants to go to the pub and watch the match, so I'm going to wrap things up maybe 5 minutes earlier than normal. Sorry, guys, it's Mickey's fault, not mine. Tim Bozaval, long-time watcher, says, does Ashley believe the ongoing legal stuff will facilitate the sale of the club to PIF, etc., or is he paying lip service to the Saudis just to flog a sports tat to them and requesting a refund from the Premier League? So True Faith, Alex, Youssef and Mick did a really good emergency-free podcast on this. So I'm sitting on a really uncomfortable wooden chair, so I keep moving. They did an emergency podcast on this yesterday. Youssef is a lawyer and has some insight into and really effectively breaks down what the news yesterday that came out was about. It's hard to say what Mike Ashley believes will happen. I am firmly of the opinion that Mike Ashley just wants some more money. Like, he just wants some more money because he's just greedy money man. And he feels, this is what I think. I think that he feels that he has been robbed of £350 million and he thinks it's the Premier League that's done the robbing. So he wants some money, and specifically this new claim that he's brought against the Premier League is about damages, about reclaiming damages, that is to say cash. And it probably doesn't do any harm to a relationship with Saudi Arabia, and flogging is crap there. Either, because it makes him look like he's angry or whatever, where I think realistically he'd have sold this club to anyone with 350 million quid in their pocket. Like, he doesn't give a toss who it is. But it doesn't hurt that it's a whole nation that he could expand into with his stupid mug empire. Yeah, that's what I think. Mickey?
Mike Ashley only cares about money, but the greatest route he could have for the whole of the rest of his life in terms of bringing in revenue is by creating a positive relationship with the Saudis. That doesn't come around every day for someone like Mike Ashley. So I genuinely think, and this is just me speculating, but I think that he wants this deal to go through, not to sell the club necessarily, and not necessarily for the 350 million quid, but to get on board with the Saudi government, because they have so much money and so much influence worldwide, and there's a completely, as far as I'm aware anyway, untapped market in terms of everything that Mike Ashley could sell over there, and his experience in retail and all of this stuff. Like, if he can build a positive relationship with the Saudi government, even if the sale of the club doesn't go through, his wealth will explode, and that's what he cares about. So I think he is pushing for the sale of the club for the purposes of building his relationship, not necessarily because he wants to sell the club to them. If you see what I mean, that's kind of a very convoluted point.
You're saying that it doesn't matter, about him getting his £250 million. It's more about the market in Saudi that he could expand into with his stupid retail empire.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's both, isn't it? I think the ultimate prize for him, though, is a positive relationship with the Saudi government, and he will do anything he can to facilitate that. And if selling the club for 350 million quid as part of that, obviously that's a huge benefit to him as well, because he doesn't want to be here anymore, does he? So
no, I think that's one thing. What's like one positive I've taken from this last year is that he does want to sell this club. I do believe that now. Like there was all that kind of talk, wasn't there, a little while ago? Like, does he even really want to? Yes, I think that he does. Paul M says he's on Sky now. Quote, the Premier League is the Premier League. More stunning insight. Norman, did you know? Did you know that the Premier League is the Premier League?
I think so. It kind of ties in with his comments from today, doesn't it? When he said the reason that the teams in the bottom half of the division are in the bottom half of the division is because they're not consistent, whereas the reasons that the teams in the top half of the division are in the top half of the division are because they're consistent. So if you're in the bottom half of the table, that means that you haven't won as many games and you've lost more. If you're in the top half, you've won more and you've lost less. So it kind of ties in with that logic, which is literally stating facts. If you don't have enough points to finish in the top four, then you won't finish in the top four. It's like if you don't brush your teeth for, 2 years, you'll probably lose some teeth. Similar, It's a similar kind of logic, isn't it? I mean, it's just thanks for the facts, Steve, but they're probably unnecessary right now. Unnecessary right now. Yeah, classic Brucey.
Yeah, it is. Mickey, I'll let you go and Norman and I will wrap up. Do you want to give us your prediction for the score?
But I said on the preview that we're going to win 2-0. Just flirting back to better days of travelling to Leicester way 2 years in a row and winning.
You also did not know that Emil Kraft would be starting.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. I'm just gonna fucking do it, man. Like, why not? I'm going to the pub to watch the match the first time in a year and a half. I think we're gonna win 2-0 Newcastle. All
right. Perfect. All right. Thanks so much for joining us, Mickey. Norman and I will. You take care. Enjoy the pub. We will wrap up Slothy Vlogs, which is Davey. Says, who's feeling positive? We don't do well here, do we? Well, Mickey's feeling positive, so you're okay. Chris Hannah says, if we score more goals than Leicester, we'll win, which is another Brucey style insight. Barry C says, why am I going to watch the match now? I've had a great Friday night until now. Me too, Barry. I always just want to keep doing these. It's so much more fun. Okay. Whoa, it's 8 minutes. I'm all over the place because Mickey left, so I don't know what to do with my life. Okay. He's kind of still in the background. No, he's going. It's fine. Yes, still here. Norman.
Ask me something. Ask me something.
What's the prediction for the score? What do you think the score will be?
Oh God, I'm like a bottle and a half of beer in now, so
okay.
That can alter your perception of everything, really. But I think it's going to be a comfortable Leicester win. I hate to say it, but I really do. I mean, look, they're just so much better than us, and even if you look at the two teams 11 against 11, they're better than we, and that's the problem. Newcastle under Benitez, for example, were kind of greater than the sum of its parts. We've got some good players, and they know two ways about it. But obviously, you always thought in a game where the opposition was better than your 11 versus 11, you had that input from the manager and the coaching staff that would always give you the kind of hope pre-game. Whereas under Bruce, I mean, it's by hook or by crook. It's by a little moment of magic. It's by unforced errors from the opposition. And I think Leicester tonight at home under Rodgers, too much. I think they'll win. I think it'll be like one of those really dull 2-0 wins.
Okay, well, Seventh Sense is Leicester 7-1. So that won't be dull at least, but it'll be depressing. Yeah, I agree. It's when we have won, it's those moments of magic from individual players, isn't it? It's not like that was a set up that they've practiced. That was something that they knew what they were doing. Everybody knew where they were supposed to be in that moment, and it worked seamlessly. I haven't said that at all this season. I reckon it'll be 1-1. Leicester will sit quite deep. Leicester probably won't like that. We've got Emil Kraft on the I don't know. Paul M says he's going to play a drinking game, saying he has to have a drink every time we pass back to the keeper from an attacking position. Says we won't see half time. You look after yourself. Please drink responsibly. Michael here says I'm confident 1-1 Newcastle. So I'm not. Okay, so you're saying either it's 1-1 or we'll win 1-0. I get it. Tim Bozabelt says park the bacon 0-0. All right, okay. So Norman thinks it'll be a loss. Mickey thinks it'll be a win, and I think it'll be a draw. So I think we've covered all eventualities there. It's 5 minutes until kickoff. We are going to go away now. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for all your comments. Norman, thank you for joining me before the match. And you and your finger, and we will be back. I'll be back doing a show next week, because next week we play on Friday night again, and we'll be doing the free podcast tomorrow, and all of the associated bits and bobs will be there on Patreon as well. So thank you once again for watching, and take care, stay safe, enjoy the game.